Welcome to this episode of Renovations for Beginners, a show where we show you, the viewers at home, the fundamentals to renovating, from conceptualising an idea to bringing it to reality. I'm Michael Duray, your host for the show. You can follow us on Facebook, just search Renovations for Beginners, or you can email us on any aspects to renovating or any questions you may have want answered for our upcoming shows on renovationsforbeginners@gmail.com. On today's show, we are looking at the going-ons during the building stage, dealing with your builder, things to manage and look for, and common mistakes throughout this phase of the renovation, which is pretty much the building phase. Our guest for today's show is someone I've recently worked with on numerous school projects. He's a sole practitioner practicing in commercial and domestic architecture. Chris Pritchett from Chris Pritchett Architect. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
Did I get the intro right for you?
Certainly.
Yep. So just give us a brief description of what you do in your practice.
I'm a registered architect, been in business for about 10 years now in Brisbane, and previous to that about 7 years in New Zealand. Also worked in the UK and also overseas in places like Singapore and Japan and the Middle East.
Yep. So I know trying to get you to, trying to talk about the show today there, Chris. You're out west, you're out in the Wild West.
Oh yes, doing a lot of work in Winton at the moment, out in central West Queensland. It's quite an interesting little place. Yep. Quite enjoy it out there.
Yep. So Chris is all over the countryside in Queensland. So if you're looking for an architect out west, Chris Pritchett's the man. We'll get into the show there, Chris. So from last week, we actually talked about contracting a builder. That's where we got up to. Now we want to talk about when the builder's actually on site. So Chris, when a builder is on site, for the benefit for the client, for the viewers at home, what do clients need to look for, and how often do they visit site, and is it appropriate? Because for me, I'm fairly casual when it comes to the building. You know, like if a client walks on, I don't have a problem, but I know some builders, they get a bit antsy when clients turn up. So what's the general course?
Well, as an architect, I like to visit on average about every 2 weeks.
Yep.
I find that sometimes if you visit every week, it can be too much. Yep. But it really depends on the builder and the type of project. Yep. Some builders can be left alone, and that's not a bad thing sometimes. Usually if they've got a good set of contract documents, yep, if the architect does get involved too much, it can cause problems. Yep. But then again, you may have a poor set of contract documents, or the builder may be a little bit nervous, or he may not be too confident, yep, and that's when the architect can assist on site.
Yep. Now, for clients themselves, when are they allowed to visit the site, and when and how often should they go?
Yes, certainly. It really depends on the builder. I think you should set this up with the builder at the start of the project. You should actually speak to them and say that you do want a level of involvement on the site. Yep. It's always good to speak to the builder. The builder may make suggestions that he doesn't want you on site too much, yep, and then you may have to engage an architect. But I think the important thing is when you are on site is to understand a certain level of safety. Yep. You have to be very careful, yep, on site, because it's a dangerous place, a building site, as you know yourself.
So when a client does visit the site, what are the things that they should look for, just to get a bit of an idea of how the build is going? So if you can just give us a few little points there for the client.
Yeah, the first thing I like to see on site, Michael, is a nice clean site. Yep. We've got to make sure that everything's nice and tidy, because that's an indication of how well the building's going. Generally, if the builder's tidy and well organised, then the actual work will generally be quite tidy. The other thing to look for is the fact of things being stored properly, yep, the doors being left out in the wet, so are they getting warped? Things like safety is a major thing as well. Yep. Just to make sure that things like the safety fences are in place. And that's particularly important in a renovation project where you may still be living in half of the house yourself. So it's important that the section that the builder's working on is actually fenced off properly. You may have children or pets that, if they do get into the work site, it can be a problem.
Yeah. And also the other obvious thing to look for is general progress, because if nothing's happening for, like a month or two on site, it's probably a telltale sign there that builder's obviously not paying his bills and he can't get suppliers and subcontractors back on site. And it's particularly important now when the economy is a bit tight and builders are slashing their margins just to get work in the door.
That's right, yes, yes. If you turn up on site and, as you say, nothing's happened for a month, then that's definitely a time to ask why.
Yeah. Just other, you know, as the process is going through, is there just if a client turns up on site, if they see things unusual, you know, like what are the things to look out for, you know, from a quality and defects point of view?
Oh, things that are missing. Particularly, I mean, a client who's well versed with the contract drawing should be able to check if there's enough GPOs, if the tiles are being placed properly. You know, generally you can get a feel when something's wrong, and when it looks wrong, it generally is. And that's the time when you should speak to the builder, or you should take some other advice.
So, like the wrong question is to ask is not to ask a question at all. So, yeah, that's generally rule of thumb for viewers at home. If you feel not confident to ask the question, like asking a dumb question's a hell of a lot better than not asking one at all. Chris, so when we get to the end stage of the build process, we'll skip ahead. There's that defects part of, you know, when we get to the end and we got the defects. Now, what are a couple of things for the viewers at home to watch out for? Just quickly.
Well, once again, you have to go through and check all your sockets are there and make sure that all the painting's been finished.
And obviously, if you're happy with the defects getting done, then you can release half the retentions.
That's right.
Yep.
Yes, the retention is normally 5% of the contract sum, and at practical completion, when the defects are finished, you can release half of that. Yep. But it's important that 2.5% is held for about another 12 months until the end of the defects period. And if there are no defects, then you can give the money back.
And another point I'd like to make, I know some architects, they like to hold on to the retention at practical completion stage, and they usually want to get all the certificates for the certified before they release anything.
Yes. You can't generally award practical completion until all the Form 16s are in place and the building's been signed off by the building certifier. Yep. But you can definitely hold back the 2.5% until all those are in place.
Well, Chris, it's a good time to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the managing of the contract, managing the particular aspects of the contract. So we'll go for a quick break, and we'll be back up to talk a little bit about contracts.